After seemingly crashing out of talks for Ebere Eze, Spurs set their sights on a new target, manoeuvring away from Selhurst Park around 15 miles to arrive in East London, taking a good look at Mohammed Kudus. The 24-year-old Ghanaian showboater is heavy in negotiations to join the Lilywhites, so let's discuss how both parties fit. Now, Mohammed Kudus is going to be a player that Spurs fans will be familiar with after his brawl with Mickey van der Ven, and of course his overall performances in the Premier League. This is a straight up yes for me in terms of a signing. I'm just going to say it straight off the bat. Mohammed Kudus is a technically talented, powerful ball carrying, direct shooting, ceiling raising footballer who covers all three positions behind the striker. He's pretty well known and appreciated for his excellent dribbling, as found statistically, contributing the second most successful take-ons in the Premier League last season and the fifth most fouls drawn. That's pretty impressive, considering last season could be considered an off-season not just for him, but for West Ham in general. Both parties really struggled for consistency. But his dribbling is absolutely superb. The levels of ball carrying paired with ball retention is off the charts at times, as this play varies from wide spaces to central ones. With the ball, his ability, his movement just screams talent and a lot of practice. His close ball control is outstanding, whether the ball is glued to his feet or within the air. He brings the ball down easily with real mastery in this department. Then, his quick feet ensures he can retain the ball and beat opponents. When dribbling, you'll notice he runs into scenarios where you expect him to lose the ball, and sometimes he will. But often he'll manage to find a way through, which is made possible due to his powerful, very stocky build. He's 5'10" and contains quite a strong physique, so opponents may bounce off him a bit and struggle to get the ball. Kudus is capable of shifting his body with nice agility, making it possible to use his size to full effect, really guarding it and throwing himself into the physical action, which translates across to his work off the ball, as his speed and strength guarantees he can compete and win those duels. He can do all of this on the ball pretty much anywhere, whether that's high in the opponent's crowded box, dropping in deep centrally, taking a man out wide, combining with teammates, making runs into space. His play differs successfully, making him a constant threat absolutely wherever he is. Once he arrives in that final third and it's time for him to shoot, he has quite the goal catalogue. He isn't shy to try any acrobatic kicks, that's for sure, as his level of improvisation when attacking the box is impressive and ambitious, which gives him that X factor and match-winning threat that Spurs slightly lack. His overall contribution in the opponent's box sparks composure. He sets his actions up with touches real well and can shoot with both feet. Commonly, he strikes the ball very powerfully with real conviction on his left foot, generating good swing and power into his efforts, making him a very deadly ball striker. He can find the corners, the bottom corners, whipped across the goal, the roof of the net, a bit of everything. Although he struggles for a bit of consistency at times, this is a quality ball striker and presents him as not just a threat outside the box, but when crashing the box with his runs too. So overall, quite the player, somebody to get you off your seat when you're watching football, somebody that Spurs fans will massively buy into. So this is a version of Tottenham's starting 11 of what we could see under Thomas Frank, and as you can see, we have Mohammed Kudus here. I think with Kudus coming in, you have very flexible win options too. You've got Heung-min Son, you've got Matthias Tell, you've got Brandon Johnson, you've got Kulusevski, you've got quite a lot of options out there. It's good to see. But with the Ghanaian coming in, you have a little bit more balance in terms of the footer and the dynamics, as Kulusevski is the only left footer here. You have different players like Mikey Moore, Matthias Tell, Heung-min Son, who are all right footed. Of course, Brandon Johnson can be on that right, but again, he's right footed. Kudus brings a different dynamic. But the good thing about Kudus is that he covers all three roles. He can play on the right, he can play in the middle, he can also play on the left, which gives him a slight edge over Ebere Eze, who we talked about before. But if we talk about Kudus in the context of him being the attacking midfielder within this team, then Last video, when I looked at Ebere Eze, we talked about Mikkel Damsgaard and what he did for Brentford, and he'd always drop in deep to create that +1, draw players into him to invite space for the likes of the fullbacks and for the likes of Brennan Johnson as such. So Kudus would be really effective here, but what he has over Ebere Eze is his powerful ball carrying. Now Eze is a fantastic player, brilliant combination play, very silky, but Kudus has the ball carrying to simply just bring the ball forward himself, create space for others, but also create space for himself. And this can be used as a very direct outlet in transition. But of course, Spurs won't be attacking in transition all the time. Thomas Frank won't get the same space he did at Brentford as he did at Spurs, or as he will at Spurs. When we look at the low build-up for Tottenham Hotspur and if we get each player into the different positions, Kudus will be able to drop in here. You'll have Brennan Johnson potentially staying high, Matthias Tel, who's a little bit more technical, dropping in. And I think this creates a very good dynamic because you have Johnson pushing high, you have somebody dropping in deep, and then you have Kudus, of course, bringing it all together. And with Johnson pushing high, it invites Pedro Porro into all of this space, with Tel dropping into a slight, combining with Kudus. It invites the doggy on the overlap, and that really gets the very best out of the fullbacks. So I think Kudus doesn't only unleash the players around him, such as Johnson, such as Tel, he'll get the very best out of the fullbacks, to say the least. But he'll be able to drop into these spaces and then move the ball forward himself directly. A lot of chances that Brentford did create were in transition, of course, but a lot of it came down to their low build-up, and I think Kudus can be really effective in this department. And of course we talked about Spurs having a little bit less space to attack than Brentford did last season. When you look at Kudus, this is a type of player that brings the X factor that Spurs need. Heung-min Son is agent, and they were incredibly reliable on him and Harry Kane for a few years. So Kudus coming in brings that little bit of X factor, that little bit of individual quality to go and win you games. But if we put Maddison back in and we put Kudus on the right, I think there's a lot to work with here. Of course, he's a left footer, so similar to Kulusevski, he can drop into these spaces, really combine with the likes of James Maddison as well. I mean, James Maddison and Kudus dropping in will be fantastic. There's pretty good balance here because you can have Pedro Porro pushing up as that runner, Solanke, that big number 9 with a bit of hold-up play, Tel, who can be a runner but also drop in as well, and of course a doggy pushing up as well. So there's a lot to work with it. Kudus dropping in, I think he'll consume lots of players into him. And the same as James Maddison. I mean, the two players share very similar dynamics in terms of their abilities. Of course, Kudus is way more powerful in his ball carrying, but the two will consume players brilliantly, and it will create space for Porro to fly forward down this side, which again unleashes the very best out of Tottenham's fullbacks, their very attacking ones. But you could also have Brennan Johnson on this side, pushing high, looking to create space for a doggy, looking to pin back the fullback. But for me, this is incredible balance as well, and I think balance in wingers is pretty important. You don't want two pushing high, you want somebody to drop in who can connect the play together, who can create a lot of threats. Now if we even look at bringing Kudus on the left, because he is more than capable, he's pretty two-footed as it is, he can drop into these spaces as Johnson can be that runner. And with Kudus dropping in, you don't necessarily have to have James Maddison within this space, as you have Kudus doing the combining work. But I think the two will be incredibly efficient in terms of linking up. If you have the ball in and around here to Bentancur, you're playing that ball forward into Kudus. Playing it into Maddison will completely unlock that next phase. I mean, the two can combine together very well. They're both very silky, they both got good ball retention. There's a lot of potential here for them to simply break through. And I think one of the biggest things about Brentford as well is when you watch them within build-up, sometimes the results are long balls, or sometimes they just look to Mbeumo each and every time to progress that ball. I think for Thomas Frank, if you give him the tools such as Kudus, if you give him the tools such as Maddison, both on the same pitch, he can really access that next phase much more directly, much more quickly, because it's quite a priority of Thomas Frank's that he wants to get the ball to the next phase as soon as possible and start attacking, as we can tell by Brentford's very enjoyable style of play last season. But when you're coming up against low blocks, it's going to look something like this. And I think you have Maddison and Kudus, particularly in these half spaces, looking to combine together. Now, of course, Kudus will be on this side, and you could have Brennan Johnson or Tell on the other, but the two can access each other and move into each other's spaces very well, because you could have Porro making the inside runs. There's a lot of rotational play. And one of the best things about Kudus is that he's excelling in pretty much every position he gets himself in, because he can really combine out wide, whether that's 1v2 or 2v1, whatever. Kudus can thrive here, he can thrive here, here, wherever you put him, because he can box attack. He's fantastic. The more spontaneous actions and the more spontaneous moments where he doesn't expect to be here, he can thrive there, and he's very good at it. And when you're coming up against a team in your Thomas Frank pressing shape, I think there's a lot of power here when Spurs press, because you have a very, very fast sprinter in terms of Brennan Johnson, who can press very efficiently as he's hard working. You've got Solanke, who's a big physical presence, but also fairly quick, fairly agile. He can press as well. You have James Maddison, who's very agile, he can get around the pitch pretty well. And then you have Kudus, somebody who's very powerful within his sprints. And then you have Porro, you have a doggy. You probably need a midfielder here. I always say this when I say about Spurs. I think they need a defensive midfielder who can win the duels but also play forward. But I think this is fantastic. Of course, with Romero, you don't know whether he's leaving or not. But I think with Spurs, he will be fantastic with Thomas Frank. Now, Thomas Frank wants his centre-backs to press. He wants them to be man-to-man, but he wants them to start with a bit of a distance to the striker, so he can come in as soon as the ball is looking to be played to him and take the ball away. The same with Van der Ven. I think his speed overall matches this much better. Of course, with Romero, you do worry about his aggression a little bit, but I think this will be fantastic. There's a complete match here. Kudus fits into this 11, and as I said, he brings that match-winning ability that when you look at Spurs' side without Kudus, they really do lack. Johnson, a bit inconsistent, but can win you a game. Maddison, very inconsistent, might be able to win you a game. Solanke, very inconsistent last season, might be able to win you a game. So there's a lot of players here who are if buts and maybes. Kudus brings a little bit of certainty into the team. If you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. What do you think of Mohammed Kudus going to Tottenham Hotspur and how he does there? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.